When I was a young girl, I dreamed about New York City. Movies like Devil Wears Prada made me feel like it was my destiny to work and live in the Big Apple. That movie was honestly how my interest in journalism started. I wanted to be someone who would roam the streets of Manhattan. I was so young when I decided on this dream that I did not know a thing or two about being practical. It didn't matter to me that I actually didn't know a single person in my life who had lived in New York City before, or that I've never been to the city, or that I was living tens of thousands of miles away, all the way home in Indonesia. I just kept telling myself it was my destiny. So if about 10 years later, by a combination of dedication, hard work, and pure good luck, that I made it here and lived the version of life my 15-year-old self desperately wanted, you would think that it would be happily ever after, right? But real life is much more complicated than that. This is the story of my 5 years in New York City. How for 5 years I gritted my teeth to pursue my dreams. Somehow there is this idea that pursuing your dreams is the golden path, that once you do, everything will fall into place and you will live happily ever after. I have come to learn that reality is much more complicated than that chasing your dreams is a lonely, difficult, and painful process that requires a lot of sacrifice. In the pursuit of my goals, I learned so much about myself, the world, and about what it really means to be happy. So in this video, I will take you around New York City with me and reminisce about the last 5 years and how my story first started right here in the financial district. So I moved here right after college for an internship. I only knew 3 people, found an apartment off Facebook Marketplace. I had just gotten out of a relationship at the time. Things were very uncertain, but I didn't care. I was so happy because I was finally in New York City. I was 22, and at that time, I really wanted to work in journalism. The fact that I was led to New York City, at that time, I believed that it was the universe throwing a sign at me, that I was pretty close to achieving my goals. Which, looking back, objectively, it was not really the case. When I started my internship, I started applying to hundreds of jobs, and I was rejected about a couple hundred times. It was a humbling experience. I questioned myself a lot and everything felt so bad for a long time. I did this thing though where I would randomly hit up people who I thought were cool, and some people would reply and I would get coffee chats. I would get to tour the office. I toured the New York Times building, Bloomberg. I think just being able to walk through these offices somehow kept the dream alive. I decided to just keep applying because after all that I needed was one job. And thankfully, I was right. My first big girl job. This is the main New York Times office and where I worked for a month or 2 before COVID started. Yep, so this is the office. Yeah, by some crazy stroke of luck, this ended up being my first job, which is crazy because I think this was like where I wanted to work ever since I was like a teen because of Devil Wears Prada. Yeah, and on my 3rd year for spring break, I took a photo right here and was trying to manifest it. I followed a lot of people who worked at New York Times on Twitter, and every day going to work was just crazy because I would bump into people I've been following for years in the elevator, and I was just super excited all the time. When I took a photo here, I told myself that I was going to work here someday. I didn't think that someday was going to come that fast. I was excited to finally get to work in news, and it's something that I thought I always wanted since I was a teen. And at this point, I've been in New York for a while, so I was starting to make friends. I was getting used to the city. I felt like my life here was starting to blossom. This was when I realized that you truly never know what will happen in life, and sort of the importance of like having dream and manifesting. There's a Muji below the New York Times building that I normally went to when I wanted to have a break from work, and being here is like a major deja vu moment. After a string of Facebook Marketplace sublets, I was finally able to afford my first big girl apartment here in New York City, aka Lincoln Center. The area is like super pretty, and of course I was so thrilled. It was such a big girl moment to me, and I felt like everything was starting to fall into place. And then of course, life is never as good as it seems. Shortly after I moved into a lovely studio here, COVID hit. I spent most of my time alone questioning a lot of things. New York Times was the dream job. It was the job I wanted so badly, but I had to face the reality that I wasn't very happy at my job. And this was not easy to accept because this was something that I wanted for so long. And I thought that having my dream job would guarantee my happiness. I also spent a lot of time alone because I was thousands of miles away from family. I spent 2 Christmases by myself, isolated. All in all, it was starting to be a difficult time. I decided to go back to the drawing board because I did not want to be a jaded 20-something-year-old just yet. I asked myself what I enjoyed, what I didn't, what are things I like doing, and what I don't. And I realized that I actually liked the engineering component of news. This was when I decided to transition and work hard to get into news engineering, which is such a niche. Still looking back, this was when the first time I felt like a real adult. I had a lease under my name, I had to file taxes, and it was just a lot of like big adult moments that I first experienced here. And I will always look at this area with so much fondness. By another stroke of insane luck, I got an engineering job at Bloomberg, specifically for news stories. And I thought to myself, now that I've done the search the second time, that it would finally be over and that life would be stable and I'd be happy forever. No more hurdles whatsoever. I was making way more money than I previously did. The world was no longer in lockdown. I started dating someone, and so it felt like things were starting to look up, right? Until, well, I found out that the person I had been dating for over a year was cheating on me and lied to me about everything, and that my job quickly turned into a very hostile workplace environment. At 26, everything I thought I wanted and worked so hard for seemed to betray me. And once again, I was sort of left to pick myself up from scratch. These were easily some of my worst days. They were so hard that there were some days when I literally had no strength in me to get out of bed, or even when I did get out of bed, I just felt so much despair in me. Eventually, I got through it by just going on with my life despite how I felt. It was definitely not easy, but from those experiences, I learned that I had so much strength in me, so much resilience. And after going through everything that I did, I had this inkling that there was no challenge that was too big or too impossible for me to overcome because there's just so much strength and resilience in me. As much as I would not recommend really terrible days to anyone, those were the days that made me realize I could truly, really depend on myself, and I had the power to craft the life I want for myself. And now that I've left my job and that I'm creating content and working on my startup, things are still not guaranteed. Like, there's no success that's guaranteed. I'm still figuring a lot of things out. It still feels very hard. And although the version of the life I want now is very different from the life I wanted when I was 16 and 22, I'm really grateful that I took a chance on my teenage dreams and really took it seriously. Because a lot of people have dreams, but only very few people can say that they sincerely tried achieving them. Sometimes you achieve your dreams and realize it's not what you wanted, and that's completely okay. Or that once you get closer to your dreams change. But I feel like the only way you know for sure is by giving it a genuine shot. I think what I'm proudest of is I'm living a version of life that I wanted for myself and defined for myself, even through a series of setbacks and trial and error. It's really hard to be true to yourself and your dreams when you live in a world that's constantly telling you to do other things instead. What's on the other side of trying to pursue your dreams isn't guaranteed money or success, because if that's the case, I would be retired by now, but I'm not. But it's deep moments of realization and self-discovery that money really can't buy, and it really makes me feel so alive. Paul Graham once said that if you work hard towards your goals, even if you don't achieve them, you learn how much you can work hard, and you soon realize that the limit doesn't exist. Through time and iteration, people will eventually succeed. And this is exactly how I feel. It is true that the things I once wanted didn't turn out right for me. But the experience taught me that there's nothing I can't accomplish if I work really, really, really hard and persevere through even the darkest of days. And I feel like that realization, that self-discovery in itself is so valuable. And pursuing your dreams is so hard, but it's always so worth it because of it. And now as I am moving to the next decade of my dreams, I really don't know what the future will entail. Or maybe I'll make a video in the future saying that I've completely given up and decided to just be whatever. Well, I hope that doesn't come to that. Right now, what I can tell you is I am really excited as I embark on this new adventure, because as cliche as it sounds, you only live one life and you need to really be true to yourself. And my version of being true to myself is always, always, always dreaming big and always going after those dreams. If you were expecting a story of how someone had dreams, achieved them, and then lived happily ever after, you should be watching a movie instead. The truth is, chasing your dreams is not easy. Sometimes you work really hard to get what you want, only to realize that your dreams have changed or you don't actually want it. Chasing your dreams is a lifelong journey of self-discovery, a series of trial and error with no guaranteed success, whether it is in the form of money or fame. But in the last 5 years, through chasing my dreams, I learned that the limit of what is possible does not exist. I learned that I can trust myself to pull through even the most difficult circumstances, and I can live my own definition of life. I got rejected and hurt so many times in the process, but through it, I found strength that I otherwise would not have known that I had. I'm not going to tell you to chase after your dreams to live happily ever after, because happiness is something you need to cultivate on a daily basis. I learned that no outcome can guarantee your happiness, and your happiness is your responsibility. I also won't tell you that you will be insanely successful when you chase your dreams, because that is not realistic. The only thing I can tell you is that when you chase your dreams, your path will be riddled with pain, but with it, fulfillment and self-discovery. You will also never live a day wondering what if. Life is way too short to live someone else's story, and to me, all of that is good enough reason to keep trying to pursue my dreams. Maybe in a few years, I will hate everything and give up. But for now, this is the path I choose. One full of pain, but also replete with meaning. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, from my heart to your screen, love, joy.